we are Skylark Drones. We've been incubated in IKP for about 3 years now. And we essentially help plan, build, and manage sustainable growth and development through drone solutions. And we work primarily in the clean energy, mining, and infrastructure sectors, along with agriculture as well.
How do the new drone regulations look for manufacturers and service providers?
So, in terms of if you look at the drone ecosystem in India, pre-regulations, it was broadly classified into manufacturers, service providers / operators, and training institutes or people who train pilots. But because there were no regulations and there is no clarity about how to go about flying a drone, it meant that not a company could not specialize on only manufacturing or only providing services, because they had to do a little bit of everything. Because let's say, for example, a company that was manufacturing drones also had to provide services to show the end user that how to operate the drone or this is safe and all that. So what happens post regulations is that a lot of these startups who were out of need of lack of clarity had to focus on all aspects of the drone value chain. They can sort of focus on their niche. And it also brings a lot of standards to each of their niches. So if you look at manufacturers, now they can go to an end user, can be the government or someone from a business or an enterprise, and they can present all the necessary approvals that the government specifies, and they have like a clear certification route for their hardware, right? So, and this is extremely indigenous because Indian drones will have the first mover advantage in terms of getting them compliant to the current regulations. And this also gives manufacturers an edge in the long term because a lot of the hardware requirements that the new regulations bring in for manufacturers, it will be something that a lot of countries in the future will also mandate. But they get a head start in terms of trying to innovate in that thing. Service providers, one major thing is they get a lot of clarity. They do not have to spend too much of their time in trying to get permissions to fly a drone. So pre-regulations, 90% of your time would be spent in just running to about 5 different state departments and 3 central bodies to get no objection certificate signed. With the regulations, you can theoretically do it in a day or so, and it sort of allows service providers to focus on getting business instead of getting permissions. And it also, the way the regulations are structured, it gives the burden of proof for service providers. So it also makes it easier for service providers to get contracts and show proof of work and all that. So that's how it changes for operators and services.
What kind of drones are going to be the most effective ones in the given framework?
Most effective, I think, if you look at the commercial side of drones, if the consumer side, obviously the nano category, which is less than 250 grams, it will be easier to fly and easier to go about procuring and operating. In terms of let's say commercial drones that are primarily used for long range inspection or large scale survey, you could have I think the micro category of drones, because they need to be registered and they need to have a no permission, no takeoff compliance certificate, and that's about it. Anything above that, you will need a lot of other requirements, but that's out of necessity because international standards, the way international standards are, they always increase the sort of regulations and requirements as the weight of the drone increases. So it's the same thing that they've done in India as well. The sweet spot would be for, let's say, micro drones that are below 2 kilograms. And anything about that will little bit more additional requirements in terms of hardware and reporting and all that. So,
what improvements do you hope to see in the future?
Drone regulations 1.0 was sort of structured keeping in mind how do you get the current ecosystem compliant so that you can have more futuristic applications, let's say precision agriculture or drone spraying and drone delivery, or even unmanned aerial traffic transport, right? So what we can see in the future is a lot of intelligence from or a lot of development in traffic management in India. I mean, unmanned aerial traffic management. Digital Sky is laying out the foundation for it, but as the number of drones increase and more use cases are discovered, India will become like a sort of like a testing ground, or even like a proving ground for very advanced traffic management of drones that other countries can learn from, and other countries with similar sort of security requirements or similar sort of geographical conditions can adopt.
What is Digital Sky platform and when will it be operational?
So the Digital Sky platform is live now. It went live from December 1st. As to what it is, it's a one-stop shop for all things drones in terms of registering and having or finding the right time and place to fly.
What is NPNT and how do I comply with that?
Okay, so NPNT is sort of an innovation on the Indian front, because the approach in most countries is to just define ABC areas and tell drone operators that you cannot fly in this area. But with the NPNT, it goes one step further by saying that only if you have the relevant permissions to fly within an area, can you even is it even possible for you to take the drone off, right? Or even is it able? I mean, only then can you take flight with the drone, right? Only if you have the relevant permissions. So NPNT is a sort of like a mandate that works on the drone firmware. What this does is it takes in permission requests from the user, and when I say that, it's like a sort of like a framework, right? So how it works is the user applies for permissions through an app, saying that I will be flying in this area during this time period, and then that sort of request is sent to DGCA through the Digital Sky platform, and they validate the permissions. They see they have a flight information management system that is being built. So they cross-check with that to see if you're flying at the right moment and in a place that UAVs can operate. If so, they sign off on the permissions, and you get a consent token saying that you're clear to fly. Right. So this consent token sits on the firmware of the drone. So the way they sort of define the technical specs of the Digital Sky, it's in a way that no one can tamper with it. Right. So if the DGCA deems that you cannot fly in that region, then the consent token with a negative reprimand or something, let's say the DGCA is not given consent, then that token comes and falls on the drone. And even if you try to take off the drone with a invalid permission, the drone will not take off.
So basically a software which is
on the drone that sort of makes it foolproof for you to take off only with the government's full approval.
Do I require a remote pilot license to fly a drone?
I mean, the regulations only allow you to first rule is you have to be above 18 to even be able to fly a drone, which I think is valid. But if you're flying a micro drone or more, then you need a pilot certificate.
So for a company like Skylark, what is the investment that goes into training pilots to fly the drones?
Do you mean currently under the regulations? Right? Yeah. So what the government has done today is they specified flight training organizations that are responsible for certifying a drone pilot according to a course that they've outlined in the regulations. And our investment would be probably to work with these flight training organizations. There are a couple in Karnataka itself, and obtain the sort of certification from them. And Skylark as an entity has to register as an operator, which is like a one-time thing. You get an operator's permit, and then with the operator's permit you have a number of pilots under you, and you can also have a number of drones registered as well. So I think it's all one-time cost. So once that is done, you can probably have like a proper foundation for any drone related business.